Hello? Is this thing on?
Is this thing on? It looks like it's on.
I don't know why that's what came out of my mouth first, but how we doing? How we feeling?
I'm kind of excited, honestly, and I'll tell you why. I'm excited because this is like our first non-football game live stream in a while.
Yeah, since the draft, which is pretty much the equivalent to football live stream, I guess. But yeah, we are back. I know we didn't get to it last week, but we are back for our first of hopefully the rest of the year weekly recaps and talking about our winners, our losers, and all the people in between of week one. Because just because you won doesn't mean you're a winner, and just because you lost doesn't mean you're a loser. So we do got some in betweeners also. But yeah, we've had a pretty chaotic week too. There's been a lot of ups, lots of downs, lots of oh crap, did that just happen? In terms of games flipping in either the second half or in the fourth quarter, last minute plays, things like that. And I'm pretty excited to talk about it. It's
The
been
one the one thing I learned this week is that no matter what you think, these teams are a lot closer in talent level than what you might actually believe by their records. And all of these teams are capable of beating up on one another on any given Sunday. And we've seen a little bit of that happen with the way the Cardinals have been playing, the way the Eagles, the Falcons, not Eagles, the Commanders, the Falcons, teams that not everybody gave a lot of hope for. And I think it's awesome. Shows
I'm
that it's a great league.
yeah, I mean, I'll be real honest, I'm happy with the whole week, like as a whole. But there's a lot of disappointment that I feel for more than one team, more than your team, more than my team, more than, our neighbor teams. But there were a lot of surprises and, that give you the excitement of watching sports in general. And, like you said, the Commanders being one of them teams, the Cardinals also shocking the world. But, I think we should kick it off where our heart starts, and we'll
Can I
we've got
start for you?
what's that?
I was going to start for you. I just want to know how nice it actually felt to see Chris Jones and Travis Kelsey back on the field.
Well, for people who do not know what you're talking about, we'll start with the Chiefs at Jacksonville. Uh, but yeah, Chris Jones being back was pretty much one of the bigger highlights of this game for me. Not just him, but the way he just immediately boosted our defensive line. Having Travis's back, I'm hoping that it wasn't too soon, and we have some things to talk about people coming back from injury. Here in a few, coming back too soon from injury. We'll talk about that soon, but I'm hoping that it's not too soon. I don't really understand the severity of his injury because there wasn't.
I,
We didn't get
I,
a lot about it, right? We just found out about it, and then okay, he's not playing week one a couple days later, so we didn't really know how serious it was.
the,
But given
the
his age and stuff, you want to take things like that carefully.
the bad thing was that it was a speculation at first and then when you found out it's a bone bruise, it's really day to day on a bone bruise. You
Yeah,
can't.
and there's different levels to any injury. Is it
But
like he bumped it, it's bruised, or did he smash it and it's bruised, right? Like there's different levels to everything. And so, when I have a bone bruise, I can still go to work, but they play a different kind of job than we do. And it,
the
it
good
it's nice to have him back.
the good thing is that he was able to play. I can only see, unless he got hit on it really hard, which I don't think happened, that it'll continue to improve this week. The biggest takeaway that I had from that game, first and foremost, is that when I watched it back on replay, because I couldn't watch it live, my first impression of that game was Chris Jones's presence on the defense reminds me a lot of Patrick Mahomes on the offense. He changes the way that team looks on D. And I'm a fan because I love good football teams. I love great coaching and great players and people that step up. But I really never realized how much of a catalyst he was for that defense and what his presence actually means for it.
No, so jumping back a week to week one, we played against the Lions, who have a fairly good offensive line. And I'm gonna admit, I was really impressed with our defensive showing, without Chris Jones. So it gave me a lot of optimism for the future. Not meaning next week or week 4, or even like jump into like the Bills, the Eagles, the Bengals games. Not that, but like just the future, because there's a lot of young pieces on our defense, and so seeing them without Chris Jones is inevitably looking into the future a little bit. But I was really happy with how we lost the game, and that sucks. It's week 1. You hope to get the win, but I was happy about that. And then coming and having Chris back, and he, getting a sack on 4th down, getting guys like Mike Dana and George Karlaftis, they're getting pressure up the middle on Trevor Lawrence. They kept him fairly contained. He had a few runs out on the edge, which any good quarterback can see when the play's dead and you got to do it. So, but all them guys up front, they played locked tight. We held them to 9 points in this game, and so that's a win any game, no matter who your matchup is. You could play the Cowboys, you could play the Cardinals, you could play the Bengals, you could play the Jags, the Colts, the Texans. It doesn't matter. If you hold a team to 9 points, you've done something right. So I'm just ecstatic about the defense. My bigger issue in everything, I had no problem with this defense in this game. I had no problem with them in the last game. It's still all eyes on the offense, and that's what the media, that's what the fans, that's what everyone's talking about anyway. When they go up on the mic stand, Andy Reid and guys like that, they're not asking him how you feel about your defense. They're asking him what the heck's wrong with your offense. And so, I think after going back and really kind of diving into that game, turnovers obviously are a huge issue. I told you going into this week, I thought Kadarius Toney was going to have a bounce back big week. He did. I mean, everything he was given, he made the most of. He caught most of his passes. He looked good. And then, we had a Justin Watson fumble. We had a Richie James muffed punt turnover down in the red zone, but thankfully the defense, held them to 3 within the 10. So, defense, perfect. No complaints. I mean, obviously there's things you can work on and get better. If anyone scores a single point, there's something to be worked on. But, I think that the receivers, I think they're slowly working their way out, right? Like, I don't think it's life or death. I think at the end of the day, you got Patrick Mahomes, you still have a chance. Travis Kelce looked, had a touchdown. You had Sky Moore with a touchdown. Another issue was the offensive line. Juwan Taylor had multiple penalties after being like scrutinized on live TV Thursday Night Football, and they inevitably left him benched for a period of time in this game. Now, the problem with that, in my opinion, isn't so much what he's doing wrong. It's that officials need to figure out what is right and what is wrong, because, after the Thursday night debacle talking about him, right? It got me looking into. Everyone was like, well, he did it in Jacksonville. No one said anything to him for years. So I went back and watched some Jacksonville games. I mean, he did all the same things that he did for us. There were a couple plays. It's like, okay, that should be called. It's very bad. But, on in the whole scheme of things there, and I went and watched other linemen. I deep dived into this because obviously when next day I show up at work, people are going to have something to say to me about it. And so a lot of left tackles do everything they said was wrong with him. And, I'll admit, I'm not the person to watch the offensive line or the defensive line every snap. If it's very obvious, I'll notice it. But I don't usually just focus in on it every single snap like these refs do, and certain fans who just understand that part of the game a little bit better. But I think this is one of those things that the ref committee needs to come together, figure out what's right and what's wrong, and make it equal for everybody. Because it's really embarrassing paying your left tackle all that money, and he got penalized to the point they had to take him out of the game. Whether he was doing right or wrong, obviously, like I said, there were some wrong. I didn't get to see all of the penalties because I couldn't watch every second of the whole game. He does, have the false starts and whatnot, but like they need to come to some common ground because it feels like they're singling him out at this point, and it's embarrassing for everybody involved.
A slightly different take, and I think that I actually heard a little bit of something about this after the fact. You know, I think it was an Andy Reid statement, but his conditioning seems to be a problem. Seems like that he is not up to game speed, from his off-season workouts and stuff like that. And I think that was the biggest part. I mean, that's not the whole reason he got benched, but that's why they did bring him back after he got later in that game, I believe. You know what? I think that I'm going to use the word for Kansas City right now as continuity. I think
Yep.
the receiving core looks different. I think the offensive line obviously looks a little bit different. They've had to move people around. I just think this is a learning process for gaining continuity. I think everything's okay there. I just think it's going to take a few weeks to kind of, like a few years ago when they were losing and the defense was struggling. Spags got it together, and then they worked on it, and they got better as the year went on. Kansas City doesn't need to peak in September. Kansas City needs to peak in December, and right now it's good for them to learn.
Right. No, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Hang on, I was just figuring something out with our setup. I figured out what the problem is, why we are not able to see the comments because of how I started up this whole thing, but that's irrelevant. I think it takes 6 to 8 to sometimes a little bit longer for teams. Sorry, let me finish that sentence fully. But 6 to 10 quarters of football for teams to really get who they are, right? Figure out completely who they are. They've taken away a game of preseason, so there's only 3 games. And now with that extra game gone, it's more so of finding out who you want on your team, not so much focusing on your starters. Like a lot of teams give their starters playing time just to get a feel, just to take a couple hits, and so they're ready for week 1. But it's mostly a process of elimination of who you want and don't want anymore. And I think that fourth game really helped a lot of teams prepare for week 1. And so it takes a while for these teams to figure out who they are and how to work together. And when we get to them, when we talk to the Giants, they're one of those teams. They didn't score for their first 6 quarters and got blown out in each of those 6 quarters. And then they started figuring it out, and finally it looked like a football team. And so I think they'll be fine. They have a really tough schedule, so you'd hope that they're figuring it out as they go. To the Jawan Taylor thing, whether it be about his conditioning or not, I hope the league comes to a conclusion. So we don't spend every week talking about him, like singling him. And when we get on to talking about, the Chiefs playing football, we don't have to spend this discussion time talking about our left tackle. Like, I know he's an important piece to this offense, and the left tackle is an important piece to every offense. But I hope this situation just gets figured out on its own, and so we can focus on more important things than how our offensive linemen need to line up. Um, but, like I said, the turnovers really bothered me in this game. The muffed punt, it happens. We've been used to that for like 2 years now. That's just something I don't think we're ever going to truly get away from. And it happens to every football team. So that's whatever. But the Justin Watson fumble, and, he made some great catches in this game, so it's hard to, talk about that too, but that's part of it. Like, you need ball security, and then Patrick Mahomes did have an interception in this game. It was a deep ball to Justin Watson in double coverage. If he would have caught it, it would have been a great play. Um, the defender just made an even better play on the ball, and that's what happens, so I'm not really worried about that play specifically. It is a turnover. I think the Chiefs need to clean up the turnovers, and just keep pushing. I think they'll be fine. They got the Bears next week. It'll be an interesting game. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout like people want to say. It'll be an interesting game, and I think this will be a good time to feel out this team and really start putting some pieces together, especially with the young guys. Moving on, though, we've got your team. Not such a brighter side of things. The Bengals and the Ravens faced off in Cincinnati. The Bengals' last 3 home games were against the Ravens.
When does that ever happen?
Weird enough, but this time they fell a little bit short. I think there's a lot of good. There's a lot of bad to talk about. Obviously, the bad, Joe Burrow's not right. Joe Burrow's leg. He aggravated that calf strain from preseason. But some of the positives I do want to talk about. They only put up 3 points against Cleveland. They were able to move the football more in the air. Higgins got involved. I think he's always going to be a key piece. Every single snap he plays for the Cincinnati Bengals is a key, he's a key piece. Chase kind of got shut down, and I read this weird stat that he averages like 120 yards a game against the Ravens, which is absolutely insane, but I think he was only held to like 30 or 50 or something like that. I think the biggest issue on your offense, other than the offensive line, which as long as I've ever lived, I think that's been an issue, is the run game. Mixon had double-digit carries and only like 40-something yards, and then your backup had 1 carry and Joe had 1 carry in that game. I think they need, back to the word you were using, continuity. They need to find something that's working and keep pressing that. But Joe's injury, I think, my biggest take, and I'm going to compliment Jamar Chase on this because, he says a lot of things that really irritate me. And, maybe if he was on my team and said those, I might not be quite as irritated. But he says a lot of dumb things, in my opinion. But one thing he said before week 1 was they asked him about Joe's injury and if he was going to play. He said he'll play if he feels like he's ready to play, but I don't think he should until he's ready. Like, he said that. He said, as much as I want him out there, every play that I'm out there, I would rather him get healthy than be on the field and not be healthy. And so I agree with him 100%. And I think maybe he did come back too early because there's issues with starting week 1 on the injury list, so how long it'll keep you out with like the PUP list and things, the IR and everything. And so I think they rushed him back because they didn't want him to have to sit for too long. And I think this injury's never going to go away like the whole season if they don't find a way to get him healthy and also protect him.
You're all valid points. The biggest thing is that you look at the conundrum that they created. They did not want to have a slow start, so they rested him all of preseason after he got injured to get him back for the game 1. Obviously, he was not ready in Cleveland. He was a little better against Baltimore, but where was the hurt of starting Jake Browning the first 2 games? You're already 0-2, and now you've got question marks going forward. I take most of this back to coaching, and I'm gonna really rip on Brian Callahan here. Mixon had 13 carries for like 59 yards in the game. He had a 4.5 average, but guess what? With Joe being injured and having a tender leg, they should have leaned on Joe Mixon. They should have put the ball in his hand. they should have used their running game to open up easier passes for him in the passing game. And Callahan refuses. They go out here with this pass heavy. I want to throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game, and it's not conducive to where Joe is at right now. So I'm going to go back to coaching. Zach Taylor needs to step up and do what's best for the team, not do what's best for the fans. And I think that's what they want to do. They want to see Joe throw the ball. How well is he going to throw the ball with a sore leg? He's not. You use your run game. That's why you kept Joe Mixon. That's why you didn't get rid of him. You lost Samaje Perine, who could have helped out in that. But you know what? Lean on the guys that you've got a great offense. Lean on those guys. So, but furthermore, they played much better in this game. Lamar Jackson played almost a flawless game of football. He went through his progressions on the passing game, and if he got past the third one and he didn't see anything, he scrambled, and he didn't always just take off down the field like before. He looked for somebody to come open when he scrambled, and if nobody came open, he ran. So he got through 5 progressions. The rush was there. He just did a good job, and I don't think we could have, if Joe was 100% healthy, I don't think we were winning that game.
No, and I'm with you. I just wanted to compliment Lamar. Week 1 we didn't get to see it, but week 2 is really what I wanted. Not against your team, but like the progression for him to continue to grow, especially after getting paid all that money. You want to see him get better, and it was really nice to see him fill out to the QB we know he can be.
Watch this. The Baltimore Ravens game plan to shorten the game, string out long possessions, and cut down the amount of possessions in the game. They know if they give Joe extra chances, he can use a guy like Jamar Chase to burn them if they're on the field long enough. But they slow the game down. They did what they need to do to be a dominant team, and that's why I picked them to win this division.
I mean, I guess you had more faith in Baltimore than I did. I mean, I had faith in them being a good football team, but you did pick against your Bengals to put them at number 1 this year. And right now, it's still way too early to say that, but you're on the right track. And they progressed from week 1 to week 2 better than any team in the league. All the teams that started hot in week 1, even if they won in week 2, didn't feel as hot, right? And so, Baltimore made the biggest jump for between the first 2 weeks.
So the only
me.
thing that you got to say about that now, Lamar has done this in the past where he's been absolutely perfect, impeccable, but he has streaks of inconsistency in the middle. Next week will be another test. Can he go back out and can he repeat the same performance? Can he play to the same level without making mistakes? That's where he gets into trouble later in the season. Early in the season, he's been spot on just about every year. Injury from running too much. He's got to, if he manages his game, I think he's going to have a great year.
No, yeah, I'm really impressed, and I think the thing with OBJ going out at halftime, but all that people seem to think that that's the whole reason this happened, but it was happening before he got injured in this game. Oh, I just forgot his name. The wide receiver that came from Nelson Aguilar in that offense looked incredible, along with Zay Flowers. Like those 2 guys, especially with the second half, it was more focused on them, and then Bateman and Andrews, who was also dealing with an injury. So I feel like they didn't want to throw it his way if they didn't have to. Those 2 guys really shined in that offense, and I feel like if they can continue that connection, if Lamar can have 4 guys that he trusts instead of just Mark Andrews, they could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I love the game that they played today or yesterday. The other part of that is that it really pains me to give them so much credit, but their coaching is obviously better than what I have in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, for to summarize all, I'm still not super worried about your defense. You can see where some of the pieces that left last year. You can see some of the holes that they left when they went elsewhere. But I think because they were filled with these younger players, it's just going to take a little bit more time for them to, get going. Like I still have faith in your defensive coordinator and your defense. And this is how they were last year too. And moving apart from the offense, the defense played really, really well later in the season. Like as the season went on, they just kept getting stronger. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen now. It's just what's going to happen with your offense. How long will Joe be out? Because they're talking about him missing this Monday Night Football game coming up. But then they're also talking about, well, how many weeks? Like they're not saying how many days anymore. They're saying how many weeks is he going to be out?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think at this point they're going to probably, I hate to say it, but they'll probably try to play him Monday night. Because
I guarantee he'll at least suit up.
yeah,
I just feel like they're not going to play this the right way, and all he's needed was rest, right? Like that's all he needs is rest and rehab, and I think if you could change anything from the start of this season was not playing Joe Burrow in week 1. At
absolutely.
least week 1, like you could have turned around and brought him back against the Baltimore this week, and it might have been more fun than it is. Give your offensive line a time to figure out how to work together because not a lot of starters played in preseason, and
No.
then bring Joe in.
What a great opportunity to go to Cleveland, a team that's got an awesome defense, and work out the kinks in your running game with a backup quarterback. I mean, things like that. And that's hindsight, foresight. I don't think they think that way. They think they have to go out there and win early because, I've been very critical that their early losses last year cost them possible home field advantage because they didn't prep in the preseason right. Well, they did the same thing this year, and then they didn't take care of Joe the way they should have. Andy Reid would have set Patrick. He would have set him. He would have set him for at
I mean, it
least
would have been a
game.
fight, but they probably would have set him.
And the other comment that I have is that, and before we move on, because I know we got to get through, the best thing about the defense is the defense is more than okay. And I'll tell you why. The offense has struggled. The time of possession's been the other way. The defense has been getting reps, a lot of reps, because they're on the field too long. So 27 points to Baltimore is not that big a deal when you're on the field too long. Baltimore controlled time of possession. The defense is going to be fine. They're going to be what probably has to win them the game against the Rams next week. But the defense and Lou Anarumo's good. The young secondary played pretty well, a lot, just a couple of mishaps. And what are you going to have? They're rookies.
Oh, yeah, and like I said, I feel like this is how their defense played last year, and after a couple games under their belt, they tightened up and they were a good football team. And so I'm not worried about the defense at all. I think the biggest concern for Cincinnati as a Bengals fan, you would think would be Joe Burrow, his health, his legs, and your offensive line / run game. Like, you obviously got one of the best receiving cores in the league. Those guys will catch balls if they're able to get them to them.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that you heal that soft tissue injury, that calf. That calf is a tricky injury. I've seen it linger for whole seasons. Dante Culpepper comes to mind, where he had a season where he kept trying to play with it, and and it just took away from his game, and he ended up hurt the whole year, and then he ended up on the axing block the next year. I know that doesn't work for Joe since he got his contract, but take care of it. You know what? If you have to scrap a season to protect your investment in your quarterback, so be it. Take the time to figure out what you want at your other positions and build. I'm not saying you're going to scrap the season. I'm just saying that take care of the guys that are going to get you chances at the Super Bowl.
No, I'm behind you 100%. And once we get to our week 3 picks, we're obviously going to dive into these games a little bit more of next week. We'll go ahead and move on from our teams just so we can get talking about some of these. This game, well, we're going to start with Thursday Night Football, Minnesota at Philadelphia. We were talking about time of possession. That was the big difference in this one. The Philly had the ball 39 minutes, whereas Minnesota only had 20, and this ended up being a one-score game. You know, if they could have kept their offense on the field a little bit longer, that could have been the difference because, you know, people are going to look at this score, right? If you didn't watch this game, you're going to say, oh, Thursday Night Football, what's the score? And you're going to look at it 28-34. Oh, primetime Kirk Cousins just lost them another game. Well, Kirk Cousins played lights out in this game, but they were barely on the field the whole game. And that's the problem. You know, he went 31 for 44, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns while being sacked twice and no turnovers. You know, that's the difference. Their defense, not their strong suit, but their offense, they couldn't get the run game where it needed to be. And yeah, I know Alexander Madison did not have the greatest of games. They are also missing the presence of Dalvin Cook. He did have, I think Madison had 1 turnover in this game. They only had 28 rushing yards as a team against one of the number 1 rushing teams in the league. And
Well,
so that's the difference in the game right there. You know, it's not that they play bad. It's just their defense got worn out quick.
let's talk about who won the game. Jalen Hurts was efficient, wasn't perfect, wasn't great, but the ability to control the clock with a running back, DeAndre Swift, did not.
Dude.
Kenny Gainwell was the starter in week 1. He took the secondary role. He comes in, Kenny Gainwell gets hurt, and he comes in and he dominates the game. 28 carries for $175, 6.2 average and a touchdown. He won that game for them, and
Yeah,
he was
by himself. By himself, man.
if I can go back and just see the time of possession from him having the ball, you know, how many seconds, you know, he kept the clock running, how many runs, you know, everybody, we keep having these conversations about the lack of value at the running back position, but running backs are what are helping teams control the clock and win games. The reason why that they don't think that there's a lot of value there is because they're so fragile. Look how many running backs got hurt this week. I know we'll talk about it when we get to their respected games, but their longevity is not there. So teams are really perplexed on how to pay them. And that's been the biggest offseason issues. But DeAndre Swift takes the trade, goes to the Eagles, and he flourishes.
And they play to his strengths. They play to his strengths. They get him outside, and, you know, he was averaging like almost 10 yards a carry. But this team as a whole had 260 rushing yards, not even counting the guys like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, who are all going to get their yards and their catches. Like, they're not going to leave those dudes hanging. But, you know, this team is a good team. But I will say, I finally, for once, saw flaw in this Eagles team in the last 2 weeks. I've figured out, and I think teams are going to be able to figure out at least how to compete with them correctly. And I think if Minnesota's defense had been any better, this would have been a different kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, they controlled the ball by playing pitch and catch. But, you know, when you're playing the passing game like they did, you know, Cousins threw the ball 44 times for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. You know, he should never have to have those kind of numbers to be in a game. But they got behind the 8 ball, and they couldn't run the ball, so they couldn't effectively play time management. The other thing is that they did exploit some weakness in the secondary of Philadelphia a little bit, but Justin Jefferson can exploit weakness.
I know that they had a key piece of their secondary out for this game, and I think that obviously helped the air game for Minnesota, but 28 rushing yards as a team is just not enough. Not enough to win against a team like that.
Right. Balance wins football games.
But yeah, we'll move on from that one. It was a good game. I really felt like a blowout coming. It was trending that way, and, you know, the Vikings put on a show and kept it close. They kind of shut them down there towards the second half and was able to come back into this football game.
Hats off to Kevin O'Connell for that coaching performance, because you know what, that game could have been Dallas and the Giants. It could have been a 40-0 game. Kirk Cousins, you know what? I'm everybody's always down on him and stuff like that because he doesn't get the big time wins. But he went out there and performed like an MVP.
Yeah, 100%. I've got nothing bad to say about him. He made few, if any, mistakes in this game. Lack of defense, lack of run game, and that's the difference in the game. It wasn't on him at all. I'm sure he'll take the fall for it, but I don't think he did anything wrong. So,
No,
our next game on the list, on Sunday early games, we've got the now 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Chicago Bears, who are now have fallen to 0-2, and they put on a Baker Mayfield put on a clinic, man. Over 300 yards. He only threw one touchdown, but their run game, they put up 120 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Mike Evans almost had 200 yards on 6 catches. Uh, it was just a good day for the Buccaneers, man. I had a feeling they'd play good at home. But I don't even, as much as I feel like that should be the talking point, like, wow, this Buccaneers team is shocking us. I've already moved on from that because, like, and I shouldn't have because, like, I dogged on them so hard in the offseason. But the big talking point is, I knew Chicago wasn't going to be that great this year. Like, I, in my soul, knew that. Like, I told you, in our predictions for the season, I said the Chicago will be in a lot of games, but they will not win a lot of games. But they're not even hitting that mark of being in games. Like, Justin Fields looks bad. Like, so far out of 2 weeks, that's the only thing I can talk about during their games is how not good he looks.
yeah, I think there's lots of reasons for that, but the main reason is that and you're going to start hearing about it because Chicago fans are
Ruthless.
impeccable for doing this. They're gonna start blowing it up, and they're gonna say that, hey, maybe Eberflus is not the guy, which may be a fact. He was a first-time head coach. He may not be the guy. Justin Fields, if he doesn't learn how to manage a game at all, he's not going to be the guy either. He's headed for backup land, and they're going to go into another rebuild. Giants or the Bears need to be very careful. Balanced attack for Tampa Bay. The running game and the passing game worked. The Bears defense is still horrible. They didn't, it looked like they improved a little bit, but they didn't. They've lost key pieces. They're in the middle of a rebuild. I know this year's probably a wash. I was just ambitious in my picks for them this year because I wanted them to be better and I wanted to make some bold predictions this year. I'm usually way safe on my stuff. Bears right now are a bad team. That's on the coaching staff about getting it straightened out.
I mean, this was a 10-point game, right? This was a 2-score game. And, if you look at this box score, and, obviously a box score doesn't tell you the tale of a game, right? It just tells you a bunch of numbers. But Justin Herbert had 2 interceptions, and he fumbled the ball twice in this game.
Justin Fields.
Now, yeah, I don't know who I said, but Justin Fields.
Herbert.
Oh, sorry, Herbert. I got bad things to say about you too.
We'll get to you later.
I'll deal with you after a minute. But, he didn't lose those 2 fumbles, but he still fumbled the ball twice and threw 2 interceptions. He was almost responsible for 4 turnovers in this game. Everyone else had a fairly solid game. DJ Moore got over 100 yards. They got Cole Kmet involved. Chase Claypool played. He had 3 catches and 36 yards and a touchdown. And in the run game, they didn't have a lot of rushing yards. Fields only had 3 himself, 3 yards on 4 attempts. But, they got Khalil Herbert averaging 5. And then they've got Rashawn Johnson, who was averaging 8 yards a carry. Not very many carries, but they were producing when it was given to them. So I think this whole game, yeah, I've told you, I think the Bears defense is bad. I thought it was going to be worse than last year, and as of right now, it hasn't proved to be any better than last year. But this game really comes down to Justin Fields' play at quarterback. If he plays even a little bit better, this could have been a 1-score game or closer than it was.
Or at least seemingly closer. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, at least seemingly closer.
I feel like he's got all the talent. He's got all the skill sets. I feel like, the way they changed everything around on him. I think Matt Nagy was 100% correct. He needed to sit and learn, and he's been thrust into a role that he might not have been ready for. So, this is what happens when you screw up a young quarterback. We've seen several young quarterbacks get screwed up. Chicago happens to be responsible for quite a few of them.
Also, I'm not dropping the whole Ohio State quarterback thing yet. Like, they've never succeeded in the NFL. And so, as of right now, Stroud still has a chance, but Fields is starting to turn and prove my point with that one. All I think is if he cleans up a few things, he can be good. It's just you need to clean up a few things. Not even change your whole game plan, just clean up some stuff, and then
But
you'll be fine.
how about mature at quarterback? That's a good word for him.
I give him more maturity than some, but you know what? When he got drafted to Chicago, he was visibly upset about that. So that's not his fault. Like he
Can't
couldn't
say
even
that I
hide
blame
it.
him.
He can't even hide it. And then he got there and he was like, "It's too freaking cold here for me." Like, no, he never liked it. He's never wanted to be there. So that's also probably part of it. Moving on to our next game. This one was an interesting one. It was a good game. I know there are a lot of upset fans about this one. We've got Green Bay heading down south to take on the Falcons, and they lose in a 1-point game.
Wow. Look at our young quarterbacks. Jordan Love played an admirable game. He played winning football. We'll leave it at that. He played winning football, but then again, so did Desmond Ridder. The run game for Atlanta is phenomenal. They had
Bijan looked good.
such a balanced offense. I think they had 235 in the air, 211 on the ground. A balanced attack. And you know what? They just they just did enough to win that game. I think these two teams are very similar. I think they're going in similar directions. So that's kind of what you expect, the home team to get a little bit of a nudge. I liked Atlanta in this game, and I know you liked Green Bay.
They had a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And they lost by 1. So, they had no Aaron Jones. Their offensive line was kind of depleted, and A.J. Dillon did not have a good day. But, Packers fans have a lot to be optimistic about. No turnovers from Jordan Love, 3 touchdowns on the day. They've got their young receivers, Wicks and Reed, involved heavily with the absence of Christian Watson. I think Christian Watson comes back, Aaron Jones comes back. They're proving to be a really tough team. And they really held Atlanta in check for a good portion of this game. Bijan, Algier, and Ritter in the air and with his legs as well kind of just took over at the end.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a hot take about this game since we're on it. I'm not so certain that we don't see Kyle Pitts get traded before the deadline this year.
Yeah, I've just been really confused. I think things have gotten better there with him, but
yeah, Jonnu Smith kind of taken over that role. I mean, and he's getting more reps. He's a great trade piece. Atlanta's still building. I don't know. It's just one of those feelings that I get that there's something
it was a little suspect when they brought in Jonnu Smith. Yeah. I'll just say that. And so as much as I was happy Atlanta got him and I was happy to see him be a part of that journey of turning that team around, if it's his time to go, then it's his time to go. If they can get something valuable out of him, then it could work for both sides. He could go somewhere else and end up being a star. So,
man, we might be able to cut this video into a short. Maybe it was a good hot take there, but it just something doesn't seem right with Pitts being the superstar that he has the potential to be. And, I just feel like there's something that's off there, and I think he might end up on the trading block. But I'm happy with both teams. I think it would be they could probably get a really nice piece for him or some nice draft capital. And Atlanta's playing good right now. That can change tomorrow. Young quarterbacks can struggle. But I was really impressed going back watching this game because early on I didn't think that when I saw this one on the schedule that this would be a great game. I thought this might be a game that was just sloppy, and it was pretty well played.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game for some, and some people absolutely hated it, but I think there's a lot of optimism for both these young teams moving forward, and so I enjoyed going back through that one. I think with some of the pieces missing for both these teams, once they get back and healthy, they're looking to be a force to be reckoned with. I did have Green Bay 1-1 by the time we got to week 3. I just when I did the schedule before the season started. So maybe this is a good thing for them because I had a pretty solid outcome for the Packers preseason anyway. Next game we've got on the slate AFC South divisional battle. We've got the Texans hosting the Colts, and this was an interesting and weird game. Anthony Richardson looked really good, come out the gun hot, and he went out with concussion protocol. Gardner Minshew come in, and then it was like nothing changed. They just kept going the same way.
Who doesn't want a Gardner Minshew as a backup? The
Dude,
dude is
I
absolutely
love that guy.
professional. He might be QB 33 in the league. If you have to go after starters, he might be the best backup. And what a great tool to have there to help develop Anthony Richardson. That was a pretty good game. I'm going to give a little credit to CJ Stroud.
He played really well too.
He can't, they got down early and had to throw a lot, which was kind of where we were wondering how well that he was going to be able to do. He puts up almost 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He played well. Another game that we had young players in, and I was not disappointed with the outcome. I didn't go thoroughly through the game. I watched Richardson look really good early, and then I watched Minshew hold down the fort to win.
Yeah, I mean Richardson had almost 100 total yards before that he left around the middle of the game, but Minshew come out and put up 171, a touchdown and no interceptions. They had 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 of them which were Anthony Richardson, but they got Zach Moss going in this game as well, coming back from injury. And he put up almost 100 yards on the ground, and got himself a touchdown. This team, it's taken them some time because, they're kind of just, I really feel like the Colts are kind of just winging it right now, trying to figure out what they want to do with Richardson, how they want to utilize him. But and this winging it mindset can't last forever because people will start shutting it down. But I think they're finding out what they like and don't like about him early. And so they can continue to build on it. They've got Michael Pittman, who's their leading receiver on the day, but they have a lot of young guys. The Granson Moss. Moss caught a couple passes. They got Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. They've got all kinds of guys. They spread the ball out to just about everybody on their roster that can catch a pass, and so it's a good look for them. They also had a recovered fumble from the Texans. The defense played well. But I want to sit and just talk good about the Colts. They did well all around the board. Giving up 20 points to a division rival is not the end of the world because we all do it every time. Or you give up 30 to the Denver Broncos, who just sucked last year. So, it's not a bad thing they gave up that many points, but like I said, CJ Stroud, 400 yards almost, 2 touchdowns. And then, they couldn't really get much of a run game going, but they tried it with just about everybody. And, they're learning who can do what. And I think this was just when you look at a divisional game, you're like, obviously you want to win, right? But when you get behind early, you're gonna abandon the run game. And we can talk about a lot of different teams that do that. But Nico Collins with a monster game, 7 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. It was averaging 20 yards, per catch. And then they had Robert Woods, who I forgot about, going there. and that was basically like Brandon Cook's replacement. And then,
Robert Woods.
yeah.
Dalton Schultz is there as well.
Dalton Schultz was a good pickup for a young QB.
Really nice guys to go out there that are just it's a good look. D'Amico Ryans going out and making sure he has sure-handed receivers for this young quarterback. He didn't want drops to affect CJ Stroud's development, so he got guys like Robert Woods and Dalton Schultz, and Tank Dell coming out of the draft was another sure-handed receiver. He's got a plan. Houston, we know Houston's not going to be a this year team. They're going to be competitive. I was another set of teams I was really impressed with, and I don't usually say that about the young quarterbacks and the young coaches.
I appreciate you, Leo. Yeah, and if you look at this box score and comparing these teams, right? Houston won on a bunch of levels. They had the better time of possession. They had the more plays, more first downs, more yards. The only thing that the Colts beat them in were rushing yards. They had less penalties than the Colts did. I think there's a lot of promise out of this young Houston Texans team. They might not win a lot of games this year, but I think they're going to keep building. And I think the same about the Colts, right? Both these two teams, they're on the right path, I think. As long as they keep their quarterbacks healthy. Pizzle, what's good, my dude? Moving on to our next game, we've got the Chargers at the Titans. Finally, the other Justin that we've got some bad things to say about. I don't even know how I feel about this game. I expected the Chargers to win. They won like 3 of their last 4 against the Titans. Herbert didn't really have that bad of a game, actually, if we want to be honest. He threw for 305 and 2 touchdowns. But they had only 61 rushing yards, and they were missing Austin Eckler in this game. Their leading rusher was Josh Kelly with 39 yards, and that's not good against a team like Tennessee, who likes to run the ball down your throat. Flipping over, I don't even really know what happened in this game because they were winning most of the game, and then happened to see people talking about a comeback, and then all of a sudden the Tennessee Titans were winning. But Tannehill, 246 and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, 80 yards on the ground. Tajay Spears, 49 yards on the ground. They had 2 rushing touchdowns, one from Tannehill, one from Henry. Treylon Burks had a pretty good game. He had one deep ball that was, I think, went for like 60 yards, honestly. And they're working DeAndre Hopkins in. He had a couple catches as well. I don't really know what went wrong for either team and what went right for either team because I laughed at the outcome because there was no freaking way that they were going to lose this game, and then they did.
Let me check it because what it really looks like to me and what it actually turns out being is that it seems like it's the theme of the day. The team.
The time of possession went to the Titans by a mile.
You got time of possession. You had balance. Your run game put up 141 yards, passing yards just a little over 200. So that's a really balanced game. Coaching wise, Vrabel is a stud. He knows how to win games. He knows how to, that's their plus. What can you say about the Chargers? The Chargers are in the same boat as the Bengals. They went up and they've lost a couple games early. Now they got to see what they're made of. But I think Zach Taylor has a little more leash than Staley does out there with the Charger world. But the Chargers got to get it together. Mike Vrabel just does Mike Vrabel things and wins.
He's a winner, man. I don't know what else there is to it. Is he just wins games, and you got to give him the respect where respect's due, and it's what he does. Like I said, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to this one. I just happened to see the tables turn on them, and all of a sudden, you had a new winner. Whoa. I didn't even do anything this time. I wasn't even moving. I think my camera just gets tired. Next game we've got Raiders at the Bills. 5K has returned. But Raiders at the Bills. Raiders started off real hot and then stopped. Bills never stopped. That's pretty much the story of this game. I mean, Jimmy G didn't look bad. Devontae Adams had a pretty good game before he left with injury. I couldn't tell you about the run game because every highlight had no running plays for the most part. So I'm assuming the Raiders didn't run the football. But the one thing I'll compliment Josh Allen and the Bills is they ran the football well. They don't do that a lot, but you know, that was a big thing about Buffalo the last couple of years. We're like, man, if they develop a run game, they'll be scary, right? Like, if they, get the time of possession up a little bit more, if they run the football, they'll be scary. And that's what they did. Um, I will say there was a couple passes Josh Allen made in this game that I was in absolute awe. They were just such good passes. He ran the ball himself a couple times. I know he's trying to get away from that as well. But it was just a complete football game for the Bills.
I love it. See, I feel like the Bills are a very beatable team if you get them down early and force them to be one dimensional. But when they get out there and they can effectively start the game, playing this type of football where you run and pass and let Josh Allen be Josh Allen without pressure. Josh Allen under pressure is not a great quarterback. When he plays without pressure with a lead or in a game that he's comfortable in, look at them numbers: 31 for 37, 274, and 3 touchdowns. And James Cook, 123 yards. They had a balanced attack. If Buffalo can balance, they've got a good enough defense, only giving up 10 points to the Raiders, that they should be able to win their division. But, there's that thing. I sometimes I don't know that they game plan properly. And if Josh Allen gets behind, I don't always feel like he's got the mentality to bring them back.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with the Raiders, because I don't have a lot of bad in this match, right? No, I don't have a lot of bad to say about the Bills. They played a very complete football game. But when you go over to the stats of the Raiders, like I said, from what I had watched of it, Devontae had a good game. He had 6 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs had 5 catches and 51 yards, but he had 9 rushing attempts and -2 yards. There just points out the whole problem right there. That's your leading rusher who only got handed the ball 9 times for 1 and 2 had negative yardage. And then they had Trey Tucker, a wide receiver, had 1 rush for 34 yards, and he was their leading rusher. And then you had Zamir White with only 22 yards and Jimmy G with a 1-yard rush. Like, that just summarizes the problem,
Well,
honestly.
do you watch this? Do you think that Sean McDermott just showed the rest of the league how to beat the Raiders this year? You sell out for the run. That's what they did. They sold out to stop the run. They sold out to stop Josh Jacobs. He is the most explosive player on the team. He can control a game, and Jimmy G can just manage a game. Jimmy G had the 2 picks, which is probably more of a detriment than anything in this game for the Raiders, other than Josh Jacobs not being able to run the ball.
Oh, and one of those picks was so stupid, man. It bounced off someone's helmet and it just lingered in the air and they couldn't track it, but a Bills player tracked it and brought it down. So, I'm not going to hate too much on Jimmy Garoppolo here because, he's proven in the past he doesn't necessarily often lose games, right? He might not be the reason you win, but he's not usually the reason you lose. And I still don't think he's the reason they lost this game. Like I said, one of them doinked off a helmet. I didn't even see the other one. I only thought there was the one. But Josh Allen was playing lights out at home. You know, their defense is good. I think, but the Raiders defense only got maybe 1 sack on him. He was getting rid of the ball quickly, and if he was under pressure, when he was under pressure, he was throwing some of the most beautiful passes I've ever seen. Out of like a panic, let me just find somebody. I don't care who, as long as it's not going to get picked off kind of throw. And they were some of the most beautiful passes I've ever seen. I don't know who number 10 is for the Bills, but if you have a chance to go watch that touchdown pass to him, whoever number 10 is, that throw was incredible. I don't even know if he saw that guy and then he just saw him and threw it his way. I don't know how it happened, but he was under pressure. He held the ball for a while and then just fed it in right there. Like, it was such a good play.
Funny thing is, I'm not sure. I think that's Khalil Shakir, and I think I just cut him from my fantasy team.
I don't want to hear nothing about your fantasy team. You were gifted with a fantastic team, and you're complaining that you're going to lose every game when I literally went 0-16 or whatever last year and the year before.
I was just in there saying, because I didn't know who he was, and I was looking for upgrades, and I just cut him, I'm pretty sure. But he did have that one reception for 11 yards with the touchdown.
It was such a beautiful play. I mean, I don't care who caught the ball. It could have been Scooby-Doo that caught the ball. It was that play by Josh Allen was incredible. Like, he really impressed me in this game, especially from the first showing with 4 turnovers.
Did you see the interactions? I heard that Stephon Diggs was not a happy camper on the sideline, even in winning.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of talk on his name. People calling him a bad person and everything because of that reporter that was talking smack on him in the press room. But I'm sure he's probably not too happy right now, and he had a pretty good game. Between him, Kincaid, James Cook, and Dawson Knox, and Gabe Davis even, they all had good games, but
Buffalo has the offense to win, don't they?
They've got the defense, especially when Von Miller returns as well. They've got it. They've got everything they need. It's just when does Josh Allen play like that, and when does he play like he did last week?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, that's the only reason I'm not confident in them is because I don't trust Josh Allen. Because he can play lights out and put up 38 points and look fantastic all day long, no mistakes. And then he can just crap the bed. And you'd think he'd never played an NFL game in his career. And he's just winging it. So I still have faith they're a good football team. I still think they'll win their division. Well, Miami might have something to say about that, but but they still have a shot at their division title again, and it all comes down to him. It 100% over and over. It comes down to him. Next game we got was quite a shootout that went into overtime, I think. And I told you this last week when we went in there, and everyone was like, yeah, after the Seahawks week 1, the Lions are going to stomp the crap out of them. And I was like, man, I don't feel good about this game. I didn't have the guts to pick the Seahawks. I didn't, and I told you that when we were making our predictions, I didn't have the guts to do it, but I really believed in them bouncing back this week and at least making it a close game.
I remember. This game looked like last year's game, to be honest.
It was like identical. No defense, all offense. Like, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this game. I'm just going to say all parts involved. Both defenses did struggle a little bit, but both offenses played efficient, good football. The second half, the Seahawks putting up 24 in the second half to take it to overtime. You know what? Hats off to Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. He got a great quarterback out of the deal. They got a young running crew. They got a lot of running backs with talent. They're going to be good all year. And
they got a good receiving core too.
I still think they're going to win that West. I still think they're going to win it. So
if the Niners ever slow down, maybe. All it's going to take is if Christian McCaffrey gets injured, honestly. Like, they've got the defense to keep them in any game, anytime. But if a big piece of that offense, if anything happens, I'm not going to say they're going to slow down and get defeated, but I think they might slow down a little bit. And I hope that he stays healthy. I don't want to see that to anybody. But I'm just saying one piece could change a whole game.
Having Shanahan as a coach out there, he's very shrewd and he seems to make the right personnel decisions. As a 49ers fan, you got to be pretty comfortable that you know that you're going to be in the playoffs most every year. That's got to be a good feeling. And he doesn't have to have that top-notch quarterback, but just imagine, because I still think Purdy's a mid-range quarterback. He's probably good. He might develop, but at the end of the day, that team is going to win games regardless, and
That's
that's
what I'm
due to
saying.
coach.
Their defense will win them 95% of games, honestly.
Yeah, they've got to. They almost have to be. The Seahawks or the 49ers and the Eagles are the same teams from the NFC are probably going to be in the playoffs mostly.
For the most part, I think we might have a shocker or two in the playoffs. But yeah, Seahawks, good game. Lions still played a good game. Their defense, they lost CJ Gardner Johnson or whatever his name is.
Not good for them.
There was a couple pieces that got injured or didn't play, and I just saw this morning that they put him on the IR, so he'll be out 4 games. And those secondary injuries are basically what will turn them back into last year's team. Good, but not the defense to win every game.
Yep, and that inevitably will be their downside is not having.
I wish I wasn't such a wuss though, because I think on the thing it's a 95% had picked Detroit, and I was like, I just feel like the Seahawks are gonna win. And the Lions still almost won. It was in overtime. If any game goes to overtime, that's easily either team's game, right?
Really good coaching all the way around. Dan Campbell is going to be a head coach for a long time.
I don't think the Lions will give him up unless they just lose every game for the rest of his time there. And that won't happen either. They've got too much determination, and I freaking love that guy. Next one we got was one of the more thrilling games of the week. And, I kind of just hate both of these teams. So to say that it was thrilling, it says a lot. It's the Giants at the Cardinals. The Cardinals were leading 20-0 at halftime. And then at one point they were leading 28-7 and still ended up losing at a last second field goal for the Giants to. It took this is what we were talking about earlier when we first got on here today is some teams it takes longer to figure it out, at least 6 quarters. And you know what? The Giants didn't know how to play football for 6 whole quarters, completely, but quarter 7 and 8, they started figuring it out a little bit and they put up 24 unanswered points, which inevitably won them this game. And you can talk bad about the Giants because it's just the Cardinals, but let's not shake our heads at the Cardinals right now. Everyone in the world thought they were tanking, and their first 2 games, they've taken both teams to the edge.
Jonathan Gannon deciding to cut Colt McCoy, who was kind of a mainstay, a stabilizing force, and bring in Josh Dobbs to be the starting quarterback. That's gutsy in your first year. Josh Dobbs played admirable football. They didn't make mistakes in this game. They gave New York everything they wanted to handle and played mistake-free football. Watching these 2 new head coaches, Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, you see why Philadelphia was so sound last year on both sides of the ball. Great choices for head coaches. Jonathan Gannon's got a little bit of roster issues. Not a superb starting quarterback. He might have a better one with Dobbs than he does Murray. Who knows? But you know what? They can't be disappointed with the outcome. I know they want to win, but that was a pretty good showing.
I mean, they weren't expected to win more than 2 games this season, and if they continue playing this way, and if Kyler can come back and be successful as well once he gets to that point, they'll win more games than that. They've impressed me. I will admit that I have been impressed. Now, when it comes to a team that just lost 40-0, no, not many people are going to be that impressed by it. But they also just, beat a team or lost to a team barely that turned around and had the second most thrilling game of the week in Denver, and so I don't got anything bad to say about them. All of my bad, until the Cardinals play like we've expected them to play this season, I'm not going to say anything bad about them. But the Giants, I still would like to have a word. What is wrong with them? And now Saquon has an ankle sprain that will miss up to 3 weeks, and they got the Niners on Thursday. They're the only team in their division that's not 2-0 right now. Let's just say that, right? And, when you say that out loud, you're kind of shocked, but you're kind of not. And you're like, okay, this team must be bad then if they're the only one. They scraped by the Giants or the Cardinals, and they got their everything destroyed against the Cowboys, which I knew that was going to happen. But 2 weeks in a row to let someone put that many points up on you, it's like they're a high school football team. Like the Giants are playing like we expected the Cardinals to.
Yeah, so Wink Martindale with that defense, he's going to have to shore it up because this is the exact same thing that happened to him at the end of his tenure in Baltimore.
No, he just talked crap about Joe Burrow, and Burrow lit him up for 500 yards. That was what kicked him out.
So that New York football is not going to tolerate that very long.
Oh no,
he's going to have to get his defense together pretty quick, or they're going to have a bad season, or we might be talking, if they keep going like this, you might be talking about New York with the number 1 pick. And even though they gave Daniel Jones a contract, if they have the number 1 pick, would they take a quarterback? I love that.
They could always just cut him, and cut their losses, if they wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know how much is guaranteed in that contract. But
at that point, they should have just gave the money to Saquon, right? And just dealt with what Daniel Jones, however.
Yeah, they knew
he
they
had one good year. Everybody has one good year, and they get a big paycheck. And that's what's wrong with a lot of teams. Okay, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay the guy who actually produced on your team, not the guy who's the face of your offense, right? Because Saquon is the face, not Daniel Jones. Without Saquon, you'll watch on Thursday, and you're going to know what it's like without Saquon. Unfortunately for them, they're going to get beat twice as hard probably, but something in my brain tells me that the Giants are going to be stupid competitive without Saquon for no reason other than they're just going to. And then they're going to be like, look, Saquon, we don't even need you. That's why you're not getting paid, right? That's what's going to happen. They're going to they're not going to win. There's no way, even if there is a script, right? There's no way they're going to let the Giants beat the Niners. But what if it's an overtime game, right?
Can I say it again? I feel like our trade deadline this year is going to be hot. I feel like there's going to be guys moving around. I feel like teams are going to be making plays, dropping draft capital to try to win.
There's going to be a lot of movement with the running backs. That's for sure.
Well, right now we got 3, Chubb might be done forever. Hope not, but might be. And Eckler's out for a little while. You still got Jonathan Taylor on PUP. Look, man, if, Zach Moss had a good game there, that makes it a lot easier. If Zach Moss plays well, that makes it easier for Indy to trade him. I just think that you're going to see some running backs and stuff just get traded here before the trade deadline this year. And I think teams are going to look a little different in the second half.
No, I'm with you. That's what happened last year too.
Love it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Thursday's gonna be rough. Cheers, Giants fans. You might want to just turn your TV off for the rest of the year at this point, and just wait until you hear someone say something good in the air before you turn it back on. But moving on to the next game, we've got the next Giants opponent taking on their division rival, the Rams. The Niners won 30-23, and a game that I just really didn't expect to be this close. And you can't say, oh, well, the Niners scored a bunch of points, and then they played prevent defense, and the Rams got back into this game. They were in this game from the start of this game. The Niners scored 7, the Rams scored 7. The Niners scored 3, the Rams scored 3. They were in this game until the very end.
I don't think Brock Purdy played a great game, but neither did Matthew Stafford. Stafford had 2 picks in this game. I don't know what the overall turnover differential was, but it was 2-0. San Francisco took care of the ball, They rushed the ball well. See, there you go. San Francisco controlled the game. They rushed the ball, but the Rams had more time of possession. They just so this game was really even. You know what? I'm just going to chalk this up to Sean McVay being a really good coach and knowing how to stay in a game. And Stafford did not play exceptional. If he would have
Yeah,
played exceptional, they
the
might
only
have won.
turnovers in this game were the 2 interceptions. But, shout out to that rookie wide receiver. I don't know how to say his last name, but his first name is Puka. He set a couple records
Yeah,
in the last 2 weeks, having 15 catches and over 100 yards in their first 2 games. Like each game, 15 catches and over 100 yards. He's got 25 catches and 266 yards in 2 games as a rookie.
I don't want to get too far ahead, but like I said, I feel like this was a great job by Sean McVay to keep his team in it with a very, very, very young roster, 14 rookies on their 53 man. I look forward to next week watching Cincinnati's defense go against Matt Stafford in this offense. I don't know that our offense is going to be anything. I don't know that Joe Burrow is going to play, but I really look forward to watching our defense match up against these guys.
Yeah, I think those 2 interceptions were the difference in this game because you go down the side by side and on everything. The Rams won on everything, like other than the 2 turnovers. And I think right there, that's it. That's what lost the game is 2 possessions that were ended with nothing but giving the other team the ball.
This reminds me of an old New England Patriots box score.
It's what it feels like. That's what I was thinking that too. But this was just a grindy game for both teams. The Niners had 3 rushing touchdowns. The Rams had 1 rushing and 1 receiving. You know, the point spread on this game was 7. So those people who do that in Vegas are really good at what they do. It was 7 even, like on the dot. I expected the Niners to score 30 points in this game, but I really expected it to be like
30 to
30 to
17.
10, 30 to 13. So, yeah, nice showing for the Rams. Next week's going to be another test for Matthew Stafford and the offense. The defense, I think, is going to do okay with a struggling Bengals offense, but it is a Super Bowl rematch, so things are going to be a little heightened there on both sides for no reason other than how much people are going to talk about that. But good game for the Niners, good game for the rookies on the Rams. The defense has played better than I thought it was going to for Los Angeles. So cheers to them. Good luck next week to both teams. Niners got a little bit easier next week, but good luck to both teams because I still feel stupid about Thursday. Next game we got is the game that you covered, America's Game of the Week. And I'm sick of that title too. Game of the Week. Like, let the fans decide which one's going to be Game of the Week, right?
Amen.
But we got the Jets at the Cowboys, and you can go ahead and talk about this a little bit. I do have some things to say.
This game was dominated by Dallas defense, but I'm gonna steal what your thunder's gonna be, and I think you were absolutely.
I knew I shouldn't have let you go first.
You were spot on that, and nobody else seems to think it, but the media is already calling for him to be replaced. But Zach Wilson, although he played bad, played better considering what was coming at him. I think he showed some signs that he might actually survive being a quarterback in the NFL. I'll let you elaborate a little bit more, but Dallas is really good.
Dallas is really good. Yeah.
You know what? I didn't want to believe it, but I'm starting to understand Mike McCarthy wanting to call plays, diversifying the stats a little bit, and just kind of mixing it up a little bit more than Kellen Moore did. And I think it's really going to be beneficial for this team in the long run. They're controlling games. Micah Parsons, I don't think anybody in this world can stop him. Their defense they're all in sync. They're playing lights out. I don't think they could have won. I don't think the Jets could have went in there and won with Aaron Rodgers. I really don't. So
I think they'd have a better shot. I think it'd have been a closer game. But I'm with you, man, and I'll defend him to the end of time. Mr. Zach Wilson, that is. I know what he's put up. I know what bad he's done. I know how immature in the past that he's been. But and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the guy that you should send your young guy to talk about maturity with. But whatever he said to him, it seemed to have been working. He seems like a
Helping.
changed person, well, working, helping, it don't matter. It is working. It's just not, working as fast as these New York fans are wanting it to, right? It was just a tough draw. No one expected Rodgers to be out, but he stayed in that game. And he beat the Bills, right? And nobody, everyone thought that game was over from the second Rodgers went down, and Zach Wilson went in and he helped that team win that game. And then you turn around, it's just a terrible luck of the draw to play against the hottest defense in football right now. Um, Listen, Steelers fans will get mad at me saying this. Niners fans will get mad at me saying this, but there's no defensive player on the field right now that is better than Micah Parsons. And, if anything were to happen to him, that Dallas team would look completely different. They got a great offense, don't get me wrong, but, you could line 5 guys up and Micah Parsons will get around all 5 of them in like 4 seconds. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter how you attack him. He's going to get through you eventually. It's just a matter of when. And, but it's still going to be like less than like 5 seconds. So, you know,
Absolute stud.
everyone's going to put this bad showing on Zach Wilson because that's the thing to do. Blame the quarterback if your team loses, which, yeah, he didn't have a great showing. He did throw for 170 yards. He did have one great touchdown connection with Garrett Wilson. That dude's also a stud. But they're gonna look at the 3 interceptions and say that's why you lost. Well, if you look at those 3 interceptions, only one of them was his fault. The other 2 was pretty much Micah Parsons' fault or his offensive line's fault for giving him half a second, and Micah Parsons in his face, and he's forced to do something, and that's what causes a turnover. Yeah, you could throw the ball away, but if he threw the ball away every time he was under duress, they wouldn't have moved the football at all in this game because they abandoned the run game. They did have Dalvin Cook, but I believe he, fumbled in this game. And then they abandoned Breece Hall completely. And so that's what he's mad about. You've upset your star running back. Your other star running back had a really bad game. But listen, I don't like any NFC teams, though, but and I absolutely hate the Cowboys, but Micah Parsons is the best player on anybody's defense at this point in time. I put that over my Chris Jones. I put that over anybody else on my defense, and I'll defend Nick Bolton until the day that I die. I'll put that over either Boza's, TJ Watt, which I've seen a lot of fights about that one. You could line Micah Parsons up by himself and he'd get through an entire offensive line, but I don't think that's true about all the other guys.
Scary fast. He's trimmed up, leaned up. He is definitely, you can put him anywhere on the field. You can put him back at middle linebacker in coverage. You can put him on the edge. You can put him on the interior. He's going to find the quarterback.
He's literally the next Lawrence Taylor.
This is why he's going to get a huge contract in Dallas. I guarantee you will pay him.
No, and that's not to say I'm discrediting TJ Watt. Love that dude. He's scary. I'm not discrediting Nick Bosa. Love that dude. He's scary, but it would take 2 of each of those guys to take on one Micah Parsons.
For real.
Like, in my opinion, there's nothing you can do to stop him. But anyway, Dallas has a complete team. Their defense will remain to be this tough. They've outscored their first 2 opponents 70-10. And shout out to their defense because they're scoring some of them points too. It's not just the offense, but they've got a fairly complete offense. They've got good running backs. I love Tony Pollard so much. And they've got plenty of pass catchers that have been effective for them. Not much to say other than they're just really good, and they've had 2 really good games. We'll see what happens next week. They've got the Cardinals, so I feel like that's a trappy type game as well. But I assume that they're just going to continue this path that they're on right now until they meet their match, until someone slows them down. Next game we got is the most thrilling, exciting game of the week, in my opinion. The Commanders go to Denver. Denver gets out to a 21-3 start, and then
Sam,
Sam Howell and Brian Robinson and those guys, they just marched their way back, took the lead, and then into that game, Russell Wilson launches one of his famous moonball Hail Marys to the end zone, bounces off 3 different people, catches for the touchdown. And then they fail to complete the two-point conversion, which gives Washington the win.
I'm super huge on this Commanders team this year. I loved Sam Howell coming out of the draft. I knew he needed a year or two to develop because he was young when he came out of the draft. I like Riverboat Ron. I like what he's doing with that team. Eric Bieniemy, you can't say enough. Their offense has more than doubled their output from last year.
I love Eric Bieniemy.
They're gonna be a competitive team all season long. I think they're going to have a winning record, albeit probably 9-8, but I still think they're going to make it to a winning record. And I just absolutely love Brian Robinson. I think he's the absolute perfect back. He complements Sam Howell. I got nothing but good things to say. Usually you're a homer for the Commanders, and usually I'm not, because
I'm still a homer for them, but I'm just tired of getting humiliated by myself.
I just feel like they made the right choices. When I saw Sam Howell play against Dallas at the end of the season last year, I knew that he was going to be the starter this year, and he did a great job. And being down on the road in Denver against Sean Payton, that shows some balls for a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, and people are putting this on Russell Wilson once again, but he played 2 weeks in a row. He played 2 good games. It's not on him at this point. It's pretty much on their defense not getting it done. I just don't know how a veteran QB versus a guy who's had like 4 starts in his career loses when they're up 21-3 at halftime.
Yeah, totally different
But
game.
you know what? Eric Bieniemy has played many, many games where they were down by big numbers in the first half and come back and win. He lived the Patrick Mahomes era. He coached the Patrick Mahomes era. Sam Howell is no Patrick Mahomes, but
not yet.
He could develop. Be. He doesn't have enough games yet to be able to make that kind of call, but he has not disappointed so far.
I think the reason why people are going to put this on Russ, and the reason why I'm not going to put it on Russ, is I think that he got sacked like 5 times in this game. It may be more. And
yeah, their offensive line was crap.
And that's what I was getting ready to say. That defensive line of the Commanders is superb. The offensive line for Denver is okay, but I think the defense did a good job against him. And even doing a good job against Russ, he still played competitive football. He only turned it over 1 time. But I'm just going to say that this Commanders team feels really kind of complete. Even though they may not win every game, they're going to be in a lot. So I'm pretty excited to watch them go forward.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to the rest of their season. I'm rooting for them, obviously. But I'm not mad about the Broncos being 0-2 or the Chargers. I'm not mad about the Raiders losing this week either. So my feelings aren't hurt. Next game we got is the game that I covered. Sunday Night Football, the Dolphins at the Patriots, and this game pretty much just, in my opinion, couldn't have went more how I thought it was going to go. It was a pretty good game. It started off seeming like a blowout, 17-3. By the end of the game, it was about 24-17, a 1-score game around the end, and it was a fun one to watch. It was kind of boring to most people, but I think it was a pretty fun game to watch.
I wish Pizzle was in here because normally I bash to a T,
and he's now 5-0 against Bill Belichick. So
so now I've watched him enough now I figured it out. And, I always dog him for arm strength, but he is the most intuitive quarterback in the NFL because he doesn't have that tremendous arm strength. But you know what? He gets that ball out in front of those wide receivers. So he releases it way fast. He gets it out there in front of him, and he's got guys that can go out there and make plays fast. Like, he's doing a phenomenal job, and I'm jealous. I think he's the reason why if he stays healthy, they're going to win a lot of games. They've got everything they need. Vic Fangio, as a DC, did a pretty good job against New England this last weekend. I feel like, all things considered, that they are definitely, their stock is rising. And if Tua can stay ahead of his passing game and not chase it, he's going to do well. And his deep ball, he has to release it early, but he just knows where to throw it. I'm going to give him credit. Intuition, Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I mean, we already knew that he was like getting better as time went on, and as long as he could stay healthy, that we had confidence that he was gonna at least do enough to score a bunch of points. Like, this is a high volume offense. You got Waddle, Hill, they've got Mostert, who was electric on Sunday night. He was a big reason why I think that they won the game. They pretty much played New England's game against them. In such a high-firing throw the football offense, they ran it down their throats just as much. And so, yeah.
Going to New England and getting that dub is huge.
That's their fifth straight with Tua. I don't know what it is, and I tried to tell you, and you said, no, and I said, you're going to get burnt by him twice. You're going to get burnt by him twice. This Dolphins team just has their number.
Well, you ought to just leave me alone, because I've been a little bit taking a few more chances this year, and I'm struggling in the standings. I'm in like 6th place or whatever, maybe further down than that. I don't know, but I've been taking chances. I've been, picking upsets, and it's cost me so far. I might go back to just practicality, and we'll see how that works.
I tried to talk you out of this one. I did, though. But anyway, next game we got was kind of just these next two games were pretty much the same game, it feels like. We got the Saints at the Panthers and the Browns at the Steelers. I'm going to have to step out real quick, but, you can go ahead and talk about
blow this one up a little bit.
The few highlights from these games that we had.
Yeah, definitely. Saints and Panthers, we know how this is going to go. Let's talk about Derek Carr and the Saints to begin with. Derek Carr played good enough to win, but not good enough to dominate on the road. I'm really not a huge fan. I'm really not a huge fan of Derek Carr being heralded as a great starting quarterback here. I do want to comment a little bit here. Carolina did mount a big comeback in the fourth quarter, but the first 3 quarters they were a little off. They didn't play super well. Derek Carr, 21 of 36, 228 with a pick. Taysom Hill, pretty solid, 9 carries, 75 yards. Chris Olave, absolutely solid, 6 receptions, 86 yards. That says a lot about it. Jamal Williams, I believe, got hurt in this game. That's not going to be very good going forward. Michael Thomas, 7 receptions, 55 yards. He's still working his way back in. Get over to Carolina. Bryce Young didn't have a great game, but he didn't turn the ball over. Miles Sanders had a so bad game running. They still almost got 100 yards rushing. It's just, this game was blah. Adam Thielen was the leading receiver. That's nice. Jonathan Mingo, as a young guy, got in there. Hayden Hurst did a pretty good job as well. This game just did not have a lot of excitement, didn't have a lot of flavor. It just kind of is what it is. I don't know if she's going to make it back in time here. Let me go over a little bit of the defense for New Orleans, because that's uh, a lot of sacks. This offensive line for Carolina is not stellar. One, two, three, four sacks. That's huge. But with a rookie quarterback, you've got Bryce Young learning how to play the game, getting beat up. Reminds me a little bit of Joe Burrow, and he's not turning the ball over. He will eventually score touchdowns. I hope he doesn't get broken. The Panthers have a pretty good defense. Only giving up 20 points in this game is solid. Looking at that, looking at the defense, they also got it to the quarterback a little bit. 4 sacks, I believe. Yeah, 4 sacks. They did get a pick. Von Bell, my boy, goes to Carolina, gets an interception off of Derek Carr. Thank you, Von Bell. Much love to you, my brother. But this game just did not have a lot for the excitement factor of it. And we'll leave Alex to her comments. I won't tell her what I said, and then we'll move on.
Well, you need to tell me what you said, because I don't want to just repeat yourself.
I basically said that it's kind of a ho-hum game. Bryce Young got beat up, but he didn't turn the ball over, so he showed improvement. Von Bell got a pick of Derek Carr, who didn't play extremely well. It was just kind of a blah game. Both defenses performed admirably. Both offenses leave some to be desired.
Yeah, this was both games. I don't know if you touched the Browns one either, but
I waited.
both games just defense fest, really. Brian Burns had a great week 1 showing. He's a great piece on that young Carolina defense. They've got a lot of pieces that they can build on with it, and it's going to keep them in some games while Bryce Young is figuring the league out. His offensive line's not as good as it needs to be. I don't even know who the running back is for the Panthers.
I forgot. Just had it a minute ago. It is.
Bryce Young just needs to remember where the center lines up, and he'll be fine. Yeah, I know
Miles
his running.
Sanders.
Who?
Miles Sanders. They picked him up.
Yeah. That's right. I feel like they've got some pieces. They got DJ Chark, who got activated last night. They'll figure it out. It's just gonna be a long year for them. We knew they were gonna struggle. Well, I'm sure they'll win a couple games. The Saints, they dealt with some injuries as well.
Yeah,
They played against a good defense and a divisional opponent that usually makes for a messy game. And that's pretty much what that was. And if you want to talk about the Browns and the Steelers as well, messy game where the defense is ruled. Deshaun Watson didn't look good, and except for the times where they were playing simple football, but they just kept getting away from it, and that led to turnovers and mess. And then Kenny Pickett has not looked that great since the season has started. And I just feel like they both the Steelers have an issue at running back, and that's they went in with Najee Harris as a high draft pick a couple years ago. And his first year he did really well, and then he got injured, and then now it just feels like he's got no field vision. He can't see the lanes where he needs to go, and they hand him the ball and he just runs and gets smacked down. And they've got a couple backup guys to fill that slot, and and they showed that last night that they are doing a little bit better than he is, that there was not a lot of rushing yards in this game, period, because both defensive lines were not allowing it. But both teams have a lot of upside. Unfortunately for the Browns, they did lose Nick Chubb, and that's one of the most devastating losses to any team in the way that it happened. I hope the dude's going to be okay. It might take some time, but I hope, if even not outside of football, that he'll just be okay. But they've got potential in Jerome Ford as an RB2, and they had an RB3 that was okay as well. It's just, last night was not a game for running backs to succeed. And taken over a game if for any means. But both teams got great offensive pieces. Pickens can be really good. Amari Cooper can be really good. The pickup of Elijah Moore was actually kind of big too. I like the addition of him, and he looked good last night. Watson needs to stop worrying about the long ball game and focus more on the mid range. And I said it a million times last night while we were streaming this game. He needs to start throwing passes that are 15 yards or less out. He does fine there. He looks like he used to when he was throwing in that range. But as soon as he started throwing them long balls, interceptions that should have happened, he was overthrowing, he was underthrowing. He couldn't hit them where they needed to be. And so, if the Browns stick to simple football, they're still going to win a lot of games this year. The Steelers, I don't know what's wrong with them. It was a tough draw to have the Niners week 1. We'll give them that, right? Their defense played admirably against the Niners in week 1. This week, it looked like that we had 2 practice squad teams fighting each other. Like, I don't know. But their offense, there's something wrong with it. And I know part of it is that Harris can't be that guy they need him to be. But there's something else, and I just don't know what it is. Like, is it Pickett? I don't know. Their offensive line's obviously not great. But Pittsburgh's got a lot to work on. Their defense is going to continue, just like the Panthers, continue to keep them in football games. As long as TJ Watt's healthy, and Minkah Fitzpatrick and guys like that stay healthy, they're going to stay in every game they're in for the most part. But their offense is got to be at least average for them to be able to win those games.
Yeah. So, for anybody out there that's a Cleveland fan, this is your year before you're in salary cap hell.
Honestly, I feel like they're going to call the Colts.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor would be a good fit for them.
I know Kareem Hunt visited them today. I think they should have went ahead and signed him anyway. He went down to the Saints, and the Saints said, go hear what the Colts have to say first. He went to the Colts, walked away with no deal, and I think they should do whatever they can to get Kareem Hunt back in the building because he worked in that offense. He had a down year last year, but for years he's worked in that offense, and so he's going to get the playing time he wants. He'll get the spotlight he wants. It'll be his time to shine. I think they should really try to get him in there, and if they don't, I think they're going to be calling Indianapolis.
Yeah, I can see it. They've worked together before, so and that it makes sense for both teams. You might see Jonathan Taylor wearing a Browns uniform in lieu of Nick Chubb being hurt.
I mean, I think they'll start with Indy, but if not, they're going to call Cam Akers.
Yeah, and that's another possibility because the Rams are ready to unload him.
Look, it's been Cleveland's whole thing, their entire existence. They have to have a number 1 guy at running back. Like, they need a strong brute force, and that's their key to success. They can't do it with all the backups. Even if they put up good numbers, they can't do it without them. Like, every year I've ever watched the Cleveland Browns, any game they won was because they had a good running back. Every game they lost is because that running back was irrelevant to the situation, right? They need a guy like Jonathan Taylor. You can't replace Nick Chubb. You just can't. But you need a guy that's going to at least compete like he's trying to.
I got to say, this is why they paid Deshaun Watson $231 million in guaranteed money coming up. He's got to do it for them. If he can't perform at a higher level than what he did this weekend, Cleveland's just going to be in a lull of mediocrity for a while.
What's up, Burdens? He said, depending on how our season goes, Josh Jacobs might be available. I don't know how that's going to go after this game. This past game, he did not have a good shot to show off his abilities. I think the Raiders will be okay, be able to get him more involved. But yeah, it's pretty quiet in Cleveland right now. You just know it. You don't even have to go. You just know.
I got to say, though, absolutely. And we'll probably end up having to do a stream on this or something later. But this running back market's gonna start moving, I think, come trade deadline time. That's really hot on my topic.
I think there's a couple positions going to be hot topics at the trade deadline, and yeah, it'll be fun to watch. I'm ready for next week. We're going to get into that soon. It's going to be an interesting week 3. I don't know. We got a lot to dive into later.
Yeah, you're a trooper. I've been feeling hot, and to make the stream work today has been pretty on time.
Yeah, I've got like the worst migraine I've ever had. It's been a long day.
Getting ready to get that picks video done.
Yeah, hopefully. But I appreciate everybody who stopped by, who said hello, who supported their team, or just supported us and hung out for a little bit. You guys are awesome. You're the reason why we keep doing this, because we enjoy your time.
Love it.
That's all we got for this past week. It's time to move on to next week, but hopefully we're working in our schedule to get things more consistent, and so you guys can know for sure when and where you'll always see us. Yeah, the next thing you're gonna hear from us is week 3 predictions, and then obviously we'll be in here for Thursday night football. Oh yeah, if you're in our pick'ems, don't forget to put your picks in. If you want to join our pick'ems, I know it's already week 3, but the link's in the description. You can always join and compete each week along with us. I think that's all I have for today.
Week 3, let's go get it. Ready
I
to
always
start.
appreciate you guys. He doesn't know how to close a video, so I'm gonna do it. You guys are the best. We can't wait to see you again. If you don't hear from us tomorrow, you'll definitely hear from us Thursday. Make your picks. Our picks will be out soon. That's all I have for you. Have a good rest of your night. We appreciate you all, and we will see you guys on the next one.